So a few of you asked me if I would consider doing a video all about kind of body image and relationships and what effect bad body image can have in your relationship and that type of thing. And I was a little bit wary of doing it at first because I personally haven't experienced that much of kind of, I don't feel like my body image has affected my relationship that much. But then I was talking about it to my boyfriend and I sort of mentioned to him and he said, oh yeah, that's a really good video idea, you should do that. And I sort of said, yeah, but you know, it hasn't really affected it. And he just sort of looked at me and he said, hasn't it? And I was like, why do you think it has? And then he was saying to me that, you know, he thought that it did really affect it, and that he'd never met anyone or ever been with a woman who was as kind of body image conscious as I was, and that it did get really, really difficult for him. And I thought that I could just kind of talk to you about that because so many of you were saying that you really did feel like it made a big difference to your relationship, and I just thought that it would be interesting to kind of talk about it. So I think if I had to pinpoint when my body image was at its worst, it would have had to have been about 2.5 years ago. It was when I had lost a lot of weight and I was very, very slim. I was about 8.5 stone, which, you know, isn't super slim, but for my body that's very, very slim. And looking back now, I looked really thin, but at the time I was obsessed with getting down to 8 stone. That was what I wanted, and that half a stone just wouldn't shift, and I was becoming obsessed with it. I was hardly eating, I'd skipped dinners, I was just not doing it properly, I was not doing it healthily, and I would constantly be talking about it because for me to be able to achieve it, I had to be really, really obsessive. And because I was being so obsessive, I was just boring everyone because nobody really wanted to hear it, because it had just gotten to a point where it just became a boring subject for them to have to listen to me going on and on about my weight and my body issues and that kind of thing. And you know, it gets boring, people don't want to listen to it. And my boyfriend would just get annoyed at me and just sort of say to me to stop being stupid, and then it would turn into a whole me saying, you know, but you don't understand what it's like and all that kind of thing. And he said that it was just really, really hard to see someone who was beating themselves up about something that wasn't even wrong with them. Sort of said, you know, like, I thought that you were perfect and you didn't see that, and it was just so hard for me to try and make you see that and make you understand that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you and that you don't need to change anything and that you don't need to be agonizing over everything you eat because there's nothing wrong with you. And for me it was hard because I felt like I was trying to achieve something and nobody was supporting me. Everybody was, you know, saying that I was being obsessive, which I was, but at the time I didn't really see that. And it just kind of became this sort of circle of me talking about it and my boyfriend just not wanting to hear it. And I think in previous relationships, I am the type of person that even if I'm feeling very, very unconfident, I'm very good at faking it and I'm very good at hiding it, and the only people that I tend to let it out and show are the people who are really close to me, so like my family and my close friends and my boyfriend and that kind of thing, because we were in a serious relationship. I think if some of my kind of previous relationships that weren't very serious, I managed to kind of mask it and I managed to fake kind of being confident and being fine because I didn't feel like I could share it with them at that point, if that kind of makes sense. And the other thing was as well, I know that it's kind of an embarrassing topic to talk about, but sexually, I don't think it ever really affected me. I don't think it ever kind of put me off it or made me feel like I couldn't because my body wasn't how I wanted it to be. I don't think I personally ever felt that. That wasn't really an issue for me, but I know that for some people it can be an issue, and it's the kind of, you know, old cliche of having sex with the lights off. And it isn't a cliche. I think for a lot of people it's reality. And I don't know if men are ever going to be able to understand what you mean when someone has body issues that kind of go down that deeply, because unless you're talking to somebody who has been through it, nobody is going to understand it. No one's going to be able to kind of tell you that, you know, it's okay, and that people are just going to think that you're just kind of A, being self-indulgent, or B, that, you know, you're crazy because there's nothing wrong with you. And I think that's kind of the attitude that most men take. It's that kind of attitude of, oh, women are just so, you know, obsessed with what they look like and all that kind of thing. And it isn't really like that. There's a lot more to it, and the root of the problem goes much deeper down, but it's hard for them to kind of tell and I don't think they'll ever really be able to understand. And even now, when I've been making these types of videos for a while now, and I'll make one and then I'll sort of tell my boyfriend about what the topic was and kind of the things that I realised through it, and, you know, the comments that you've said and that kind of thing. And I can see that he doesn't really understand what I'm talking about. He doesn't really get what I mean. Like, I was telling him about the video that I made about family and body issues, and the kind of how aware I was from such a young age, and he was just sort of like, yeah, he didn't understand what I meant. And I don't think that you can make many men really understand it unless they've actually personally been through it. Same goes for women. I don't think all women could understand it either. And it can get to a point where it can kind of dominate your relationship a little bit. Sorry, my hair is just really not happening for me today. It can get to a point where it kind of can affect who you are, because you become so obsessed with it that you just think that it consumes everything, and that everything has to be about your body issues and how you're feeling and that kind of thing, and it ends up just taking over everything. And I think the only way you can kind of try and avoid that is you have really got to work at it, and you've got to really try and kind of keep it to yourself in a way, which I know sounds like a really strange thing to say, but at the same time it's something that I do think works. You need to just practice not letting it out there, and not letting it affect who you are and affect your relationship, not just kind of in a romantic capacity or a sexual capacity, but your relationship with friends, with people, with that kind of thing. Because I know for a fact that personal friends of mine had gotten fed up of me going on and on about it, because they just didn't see what the problem was, and they just thought that I was just being ridiculous. And that kind of offends you because you feel like no one understands you. But at the same time, what you've got to realise is it's the kind of subject where if someone hasn't gone through it, it's not the kind of thing that's very easy to understand. It's not something that can just be rectified by someone saying, oh, you know, it's okay, blah blah blah. People need to really understand it and understand what it's about and what's going on with it. And it's a very hard thing to do. And if you're with someone who's constantly body conscious, then it's very difficult to deal with it, because I know that you probably just want to tell them that they're just being stupid, but that's not going to help them. You need to be as supportive as you can and kind of just let them know that you're there for them. And I know from personal experience as well that when I was really quite thin, my boyfriend didn't like it. He would always tell me that he didn't like it when I was really bony. I wasn't really bony and I wasn't really skinny. I was still, you know, curvy, kind of. But things like when I'd lie down, you could see my hip bones and my collarbone. But my collarbone is always quite visible for some reason. I really like that look, but he didn't like it. And I remember he'd sort of say to me like, oh, I don't like it when I can see your bones. And that would irritate me, because I think, no, you know, I'm thin now and it's good. And I didn't realise that, you know, to some people the fact that you can see bone can sometimes look a little bit scary, especially to men as well. And I didn't realise that, and I do think that it had quite a profound effect on our relationship, because it kind of made me feel like I was in it alone and that he didn't understand what I was going through. But then looking back at it, he couldn't have understood what I was going through even if he wanted to, because unless you've gone through that, you're never going to be able to understand it. So yeah, that's just kind of my input about body image and relationships. As I said, I'm not the expert on that kind of topic because I haven't had really that much of experience with it, because I don't feel like it had that much of an effect. But for those of you who have, I wanted to make this video, and I wanted you to be free to, in the comments, just talk about anything that you want with this kind of body image and relationships, and tell me how it affected yours and how you fixed it, or if you didn't fix it, if it ruined your relationship. I think that's a very important message just to get out there as well. So please make sure that you comment below and let me know everything that you think is important with this type of subject. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all soon. Bye bye.